You're listening to 91.7 FM, WSUW, in Whitewater, Wisconsin. You're listening to Rashkin Report. You're listening to WSUW 91.7 The Edge in Whitewater, Wisconsin. This is Rashkin Report, and I'm your host, Yuri Rashkin. We're speaking with Slava Rabinovich. Slava, I suppose we should cover another important bit of news in the last few days. Russian television came out with a bizarre movie highlighting private life of an opposition leader in a way that would just not be considered acceptable by most any other form of media that I've ever seen or known, and yet this was on one of the main channels in Russia, and I think there was a lot of reaction about it. What do you think? Why would Kremlin do this kind of a media dump? Are they concerned about this person, former Prime Minister Mikhail Kasyanov, one of really few remaining opposition leaders, or are they, or are there some other reasons? And what would you do if you were Mr. Kasyanov right now?
First of all, they really are afraid of him because they know much better than anybody else that all of these ratings that are reported on the Putin approvals ratings are all just fake. And the political party that Kasyanov is heading is a party called Parnas. It is a very powerful threat to the current regime in my opinion, based on what is going to happen to Russia with the next several months before the parliament elections, and with the next year and a half or 2 years before the presidential elections. And they, of course, have to put an end to the political career of Kasyanov. He is really a huge threat to them. The second reason is probably the release is timed to the Western media promising to release these documents on Putin's corruption. That was probably a sort of a Cold War era theoretical concept playing out before our eyes, which was called MAD, mutually assured destruction. And they said, okay, if you do this, we're going to destroy the most powerful opposition leader. However, there is good news about it. Maybe it's not obvious today, but at some point I believe it's going to be obvious. There's a very wide range of choice for the courts to use the existing criminal code of Russia to prosecute the so-called authors of these films about Kasyanov. And one can only refer to the article of 137 of the Russian Criminal Code, Part 1 or Part 2. And these are quite long jail sentences for what they've done.
And what they did is they basically installed cameras in his room where he was in private with his lady friend, and he's discussing some things that have to do with politics and other people that he's dealing with, and that's, it's just bizarre that this would come out on national television. in any country?
Yuri, you have to first even make a determination, at least to yourself, whether you can actually formulate that in this way or be reserved about it. Because with the modern techniques of video editing, of audio editing, you can create just about any type of complete false movie about anything. And I don't know whether these frames in this movie were glued together or it is a real stuff. It doesn't really matter. What I'm just saying, it is a crime based on the current criminal law. So the top managers of this television channel, the authors of the film, the shareholder, which is the state, and I will remind you that this television channel was private back in the 90s and in the early 2000s, and was taken away by force from Russian oligarch Mr. Gusinsky. It was the first television channel which fell a victim to Putin's basically taking possession of
Actually, I'm going to have to correct you only, I think, because I was speaking with Mr. Schlossberg, who we were specifically talking about the channel, and he said that NTV was the dessert, because I think there were at least one more channel that was before was it like RTV or some other channel? But there were several channels that were basically nationalized, and NTV used to have a good reputation, but it's been many years.
Well, he is probably correct, but NTV was the most important and most famous for its quality and for independence, and probably that was the most high-profile takeover in that respect. But it certainly was not the last one. But that was 15 years ago, and now what I'm just arguing here is that these are all criminals. Who is responsible on behalf of the Russian state? The directors, as representatives of the shareholder of the state, the chief editor, all the editors, the film authors, just anybody. In fact, I would argue that all of the employees of this channel are criminals for making the movie and showing it on the television. They have to be put on trial, and they have to be tried based on the Article 137 of the Criminal Code. They have to be put behind the bars, and they have to be illustrated when the regime is changed. They should have a life ban, ban for life for this profession, in this profession.
Slava, so it sounds like we're talking about a country that is, from the first subject, is thoroughly not just corrupt, but it's been documented that they're corrupt. It is a country that is fostering armed conflicts around its borders, and a state that seems to have no morals about covering opposition leaders with mud that is well, not legitimate, ill-gotten, and just there's no shame.
All of the above, plus the fact that you gotta admit, and the President Obama has to admit, and the world leaders have to admit, and if you care about the opinion of the U.S. of American population, that has to be explained. Russia is a failed state. Period. It is a failed state. If you take the Russian Constitution and compare it to what is happening in Russia, it is a failed state. There are no separate and independent from each other branches of power. They're all one. There are no independent courts. There is no independent parliament. And in fact, when I'm saying that the branches of power is one, it is also destroyed even in this concept because it is hijacked by one crazy mad person, and it's not an institution any longer. It is hijacked by a criminal, and the Constitution is violated on a daily basis. Putin, based on the Constitution, as the president, is the guarantor of the Constitution, and he is the guy who is violating Constitution. But in fact, he cannot even be the Russian president at the moment, because the Russian Constitution forbids any person to serve longer than 2 consecutive terms. So Putin is not a legitimate president of Russia. So he has to be recognized as an illegitimate criminal, and I believe that that has been said several times, including the words of Senator McCain in the U.S. that Putin is a criminal under, masking himself under the mask of a leader of the state, and he is right in that respect.
Slava Rabinovich, thanks once again for being our guest.
Thank you, Yuri.
You're listening to 91.7 FM, WSUW, in Whitewater, Wisconsin. You're listening to Rashkin Report.